everyone, Reverend Angie Gage here, and I'm just trying something new today. We're getting ready to do the Stuff for Growing Community, which is our community garden that we will have, and some of the things I'm cooking right now are actually things that we'll have available in the garden. So I just wanted to, I thought, hey, let's just try something. If somebody watches it, great. If somebody learns something, great. Otherwise, I've just tried something new. Anyway, so for our dinner tonight, we're going to have some sauteed kale and Swiss chard. And what we're using is purple kale, and I've already cut most of it, but this is the last one. So we've been pinching off the leaves at the bottom, and then we're simply cutting the leaves off from the stem. And here's the thing, we're not getting rid of the stem because we can use the stem. So I've put the leaves to the side, and right here I've already started cutting some of the stems, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the rest of the stems. And we want them kind of small because, you know, stems can be kind of tough to eat, so we want them small so that we can saute them before we add the greens in. And that way they will get a little bit, they won't be quite as tough as they would be if you had just left them on and boiled your kale, or just left them on and sauteed the kale. Be careful not to cut your fingers. I'm really good about cutting myself. I don't know about you, but I'm really good about cutting myself, or slicing into a thumbnail. I promise I'm not doing that. Almost got it all done here. And something that is important for us to know is that we don't put our fingers on our knives like this. How did I learn that? Not from my mother. I learned that from Food Network and Ann Burrell on Food Network on the worst cooks in America. Because if you put your finger on a knife like that, she runs around with a black magic marker and colors on your finger so you'll remember. So the next thing I've got is our kale, and or not kale, I'm sorry, Swiss chard. And these are some pretty healthy pieces. They've already been washed, but they're pretty. This is green Swiss chard. There's several different kinds of Swiss chard. The one for sure that we're going to be growing in the garden that I'm really excited about, and I'm cutting off the ends because the ends are kind of yucky, and I'm putting that over to the side. But what I'm really excited about in the garden is that we're using rainbow Swiss chard. So it's going to be, the stems will be very colorful. So here again, like we did with the kale, we're just going to pull all the leaves to one side, hopefully you can see, and we're just going to cut the leaves off of the stem so that, we don't want the leaves in there because they aren't going to cook at the same rate as the Swiss chard stems. The stems have to cook a little more. So there's one, and we can cut them all at the same time. I'll tell you what, when I show you this one, I'm not going to use this stem, and I'll show you why. It's really not real great on the inside all the way up, so I'm going to cut off the part that doesn't look good, set it aside, but don't throw it away because we can use that for our composting. So I'm to the last piece of Swiss chard, and if you're wanting to know where I got this, I can tell you that I've gotten these today, not at our local supermarket or at Walmart. I got these through it sounds like a commercial now. I got these through my membership to Misfits Market, and it's kind of cool. I get all kinds of vegetables through that. So now I'm going to cut the stems again, keeping them kind of small because they won't cook as fast as the greens. So we're going to want to saute them and get them cooking a little bit longer than the greens. I used to be a person that put my finger out like that on the knife, and when my daughter talked us into me getting some really good knives, she kept telling me I was using my knives wrong. But anyway, so there we are. that is cut up, and I'm adding that in here with the stems from the kale. And here's the thing, just in looking at that, look at how colorful that is. Isn't that great? We're gonna make this even more colorful because along with the stems, what we're gonna add in is some of the small peppers that are the sweet peppers. Again, they've been washed and they're ready to go. And if you do gardening, you can save the seeds that are inside of these. Let me show you. I'm gonna cut one open a little more. That green on there is just from the stuff. There's not a whole lot of seeds, it's all right here, but you can cut the, you can pull the seeds out. You wanna pull the seeds out anyway before you cut them up to use. But you can save the seeds, let them dry, and then you can plant them and you can use your own seeds in your garden. What a great idea. That's actually what we're doing. I've already saved a bunch of seeds from these and I put them all together. There's 3 different colors that come in the package that I bought at the store. So I don't know when I plant them if I'm planting an orange pepper or a red one of the peppers or the yellow one. We're just gonna be surprised and we're gonna have all these pretty peppers growing. And just so you know, of course, before I got started, yes, I did wash my hands. I didn't think you needed to see that on the video. And again, nobody might be watching. I can't tell from here because I don't have my glasses on. So it looks like somebody's watching. I'm not sure, but it looks like it. I'm just kind of quartering all of these. I cut the tops off and now I'm just quartering the peppers so that I can cut them up. And I'm just gonna cut them all at the same time. It doesn't matter the color they are because they're all going in the same dish. So again, just cutting, and I'm not too worried about the size of these. I think it's okay if the size varies. You know, I'm not Food Network, but actually that's a little too many. Some people might say, oh, it needs to be a little smaller, but really the important thing on these is the color that it adds. I said earlier today to someone, you know, or yesterday, I don't know, some of the days just kind of all run together sometimes, but I said that, you know, we don't just eat with our mouth, we eat with our eyes, and when things are nice and bright and colorful, people seem to find it more appetizing. So there, I'm done with that. And if you have one of these handy dandy things, it makes it really easy when you've got something like this to just scoop it all up and put it in. And I'm gonna kind of mix that up. Look at the color now. Isn't that pretty? And you know, if you're going, oh, but I wish I could see up close more, I'm sorry, I'm the only one in here. So I'm now gonna do an onion. Actually, I'm only gonna do half an onion, and I'm gonna cut it in half and cut right through that stem at the bottom. I'm not cutting that off, but I am now gonna peel off these outer layers and get that kind of, step over here to the side for a minute. I'm gonna get the part of the skin that's not good off of there because it's all dry. You know, why would we want that paper skin? I'm gonna give it a wash real quick. I know you can't really see me, but I'm washing it. And you know, I like how they teach you on Food Network, and I got this from Worst Cooks in America, you know, to, you can cut through your onion like this, don't go through the stem all the way. And then you can cut down, not going through the stem. And what this does is it makes it really easy for you to chop the onion. And hey, if you have a chopper, gosh, please go ahead and use that. It's gonna be quicker and easier. But now we can just cut down through the onion, and you see how it's making these nice, beautiful pieces there. I haven't had to do a whole lot of work for it. And by the way, I am not a chef. Don't claim to be a chef. I'm just a home cook who has learned some tricks here and there. I have been a cook in a restaurant before. Any of you who have been to Conway, Arkansas, and have been to Stobie's restaurant, when I was in college, I was the head breakfast cook there. So, you know, I have been a cook. when I was working my way through college, I also worked at Wagon Wheel Restaurant in Greenbrier. So shout out to anyone in Greenbrier, Conway, Greenbrier, my hometowns. I worked at Wagon Wheel as a waitress, and when the woman that made our pies quit because she was retiring, I became the pie maker. And also, if you've been there and you've had their homemade beer battered onion rings, I am the one that taught the original owners of Wagon Wheel how to make beer battered onion rings from scratch, or not beer battered, but battered onion rings from scratch. Until that, they were using beer battered onion rings, and it was costing a lot. So I said, you know, you can make your onion rings from scratch. And they were like, we didn't know that. So I showed them. And I was also, this won't surprise people, I was also the soup maker. You all know I love my soup. So anyway, so now look at how pretty that is. I'm gonna just turn around over here. You can still see I've got a cast iron skillet on the stovetop. And the butter is already melted in it. It really, you really want to use, olive oil for this, but my olive oil has disappeared here at the church, so I'm using butter. Not because I want to be like Paula Deen, but because of necessity. So I'm going to get that hot, and I'm going to keep talking to you for just a minute while I go over to the refrigerator, because I realized I forgot to grab the garlic. And while I use real garlic, I am not using, or fresh garlic, I'm not using fresh garlic today. I'm using already minced garlic just to make it easier. And I'm going to put some of that. I like garlic, by the way. Just a couple of spoons in there. So now I can hear that it's sizzling over here. I'm going to get me a spoon to stir with. Make sure I move that butter around and drop this in here. And we're going to let this saute while I am cutting up the leafy parts of our greens. Get that stirred around really good. And turn the fire down, because we don't need it on high on the gas stove. So now, let me move this aside. Don't you just dislike it when people don't clean up the area where they're cooking? Now I'm going to get the greens. So on the greens, I'm just going to do a little cut down the middle of all of them, kind of, just how it's laying on the board. And then I'm squeezing them together and just chopping through them so that we've got small strips of the greens. Want to make sure I cut all the way through. So you can tell by my knife techniques that I'm not an official chef. I just do it the easiest way I can without cutting myself. I think that's the important thing, is to not cut myself. So I am cutting. There's the first batch of them, and I'm just going to put them right back here in this bowl that I had all those other parts in. Let me turn around real quick and give this a stir, because you want to keep it cooking. You don't want to burn everything onto the bottom, but just so that everything cooks a little more evenly. And I'm actually thinking I might need to turn my heat back up a little bit and move my skillet. Ooh, that's already hot. That's already hot because it's been sitting there with the butter melting. So I'm going to grab some more of the greens. And that one's kind of big. Cut it down a little bit. I'll tell you, I have not had Swiss chard before. So this is kind of exciting for me to find out what it's going to taste like. But of course, I also had kale. I thought I had two kinds of the Swiss chard. I thought I had rainbow and the green, but one was purple kale and the other was green chard. So I decided I would just cook them both together because kale, what I have learned personally is that kale is a little bit tougher to cook than spinach, and it holds up its firmness a little more, kind of like what the other is supposed to do. So I'm gonna scoop that in here. And we're gonna see tonight when we have some folks who can taste it, what they think about it. And worst case scenario is I can always say, okay, maybe we don't need to plant that. I don't know, if you like kale, if you like Swiss chard, let me know. Tell me, how have you fixed it before? There's a lot of ways to fix it. I know as a Southerner, one of the things we like to do is add bacon to everything, cook things in bacon grease. My grandmother was really good about saving all of her bacon grease, and she kept it on her stovetop in a little tin of some kind. And I have said in the past, I don't know how we didn't get any kind of disease from it just sitting on the stovetop. And I don't know how old the grease in the bottom was from the bacon, but she lived to be well into her 90s, so it didn't kill her, but things were different. So I don't know, maybe there's something that I don't know about the longevity of health and using bacon grease on your stovetop. Who knows? That's something to look up. What is the significance of bacon grease on your stovetop and your health? Those are just some tiny pieces, so I'm not going to cut them. We're really kind of down to just the small pieces, so maybe I won't cut them up as fine. And it's just the kale, which is not as tough as the other. Although I say that, and now I'm having problems cutting through. Some of y'all are probably thinking, oh look, she's about to cut her thumb off. I'm surprised I didn't. There was a day when we were having ham here at the church, and I was cutting it with an electric knife. And I'm not necessarily real good with electric knives, and that day certainly was no exception, because on that day I dropped the electric knife, and we couldn't find the guard for it. So out of habit, I'm going to tell you this as I go around and move my cell phone so that you can see what's going on over here. So out of habit, I went to grab what was falling from my hands, which of course was the electric knife. And in the process of doing that, I cut myself with the electric knife. Imagine that. I cut myself with the electric knife. Okay, so there, I'm going to show you the skillet now. I'm going to check on these. I'm just going to set this off to the side. Now I got to move this. Oh, look at that. It's caramelizing really well. That is going to be some good stuff tonight. I'm looking at checking that. It's still just a little firm, but it's getting there. I'm making a mess. I'm flipping things out of the skillet. Now, one thing is, as a Southern cook, I'm really tempted to add more butter, but I'm not going to. Butter makes everything better, right? Butter, and Southerners, the other thing that makes everything better, cream of mushroom soup. I want to try to get this camera where we're a little more focused on the skillet. Looky there. And also where you can see that. So, my phone was saying, you need to rotate your iPhone. No, I don't. Not now. So I've gone over to grab a couple more things because there's a couple of things that I didn't have. We have to have salt, so I have salt, and we have to have pepper. And we don't really need anything else. We've got the garlic in here. Oh, I'm gonna have to get something to hold on to the end of that skillet. Let me check that. Oh, those are getting really nice and tender. So I think at this point, it is safe now to go ahead and add my greens in there. So I'm just gonna put them in on top. And what's really great about greens that I've found out, again, this is just my experience, not because I'm trained or anything, is that when you put it on top of stuff that's already cooking, it's gonna start to steam, which helps to make it a little bit more tender. And I'm gonna add some salt. I also don't, you know, here's the thing, I don't measure. If Kim Strano watches this, she's gonna tell you all, no, she doesn't measure. Kim will ask me, so what's the recipe? And I'll go, don't have one. Just a little of this and a little of that. And see, there was the pepper. And now I'm gonna go ahead and start stirring it. First, let me get a hot pad, because this is burning my hand to hold on to the skillet. But I also have to watch, because here on the stove at church, we have the pilot lights going. So now I can stir it, and look, you can already see that it's starting to get nice and tender. You can see how it's steaming up some. You can see how once it's done, there's going to be these beautiful colors all together. I'm trying to get all that's on the bottom mixed in. You know, I guess if you want to, you can add more butter. Whoops, I'm flipping stuff out all over the place. But I personally don't think we need to add more butter. I really wish I had had the olive oil. I'm going to turn that down a little bit now, because it needs to cook, you know, slowly and steam the vegetables, the leaves, and I don't want everything else to start burning. It's got a nice little char to it, which I'll tell you, I read a recipe before doing this, and it said to let it kind of get a nice little char to it because of the flavor that it adds, and how it also helps with the stems to get a little more tender. Now, if I'd been smart, I would not have been doing this on Facebook Live. I would have recorded it and posted it later so that I can then break away to give this time to finish cooking and then come back. So I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to keep cooking it. I don't know how long it's going to take. And here's what I have also learned from Food Network. Keep talking. No matter what, keep talking. Because otherwise you have all this dead time, and nobody wants to watch something with dead time. So we keep talking. So I'll tell you, my grandmother, I had two grandmothers. They're not living anymore. One grandmother was this absolutely fantastic cook. She could cook anything, and I think you could give her a piece of firewood and she would probably be able to cook it. That's how good she was. She's the one that taught me how to make potato soup. So those of you who are like, oh, we really like your potato soup, well, it's because of my grandmother. My grandmother was great at potato soup. She taught me how to do a lot of cooking. She taught me a lot about quilting. She taught me a lot about life in general. She was this wonderful woman. But my other grandmother, I love both. I love Grandmom and I love Nanny. But Grandmom could not make gravy. All of her gravy tasted burned. And for a long time, I was not able to make gravy. And it didn't taste burned, it just didn't taste good. And I finally learned how to make gravy. But here's the reason why. I have to eat gluten-free. And when you eat gluten-free, you're not using flour to thicken your gravy. You have to use cornstarch. So when I started using cornstarch, my gravy started tasting better. And I was like, okay. So the problem was I didn't know how to make gravy with flour. And my husband, I don't know, he might watch this later. He might be watching now. I have no idea. But my husband can tell you that I have made gravy with coconut milk, with almond milk, and I can make gravy with any of the milks now, not just regular milk, or not just chicken or turkey gravy. I'm able to make gravy with any of this stuff now. See, look, some of us at church have to eat gluten-free, so we're not eating the sandwich rolls. We're going to cut them in half as if they're rolls. Everybody else gets some King's Hawaiian rolls. But this is a really great brand of gluten-free stuff. The Char Walmart tends to carry these. They also have ciabatta rolls, but here's what I have learned. I like these sandwich rolls more than the ciabatta rolls. They taste a lot more like bread, and I can cut one in half and I have more than enough. So, you know, gluten-free stuff is very expensive, as you know. So that means that I can get more bang for my buck, because the sandwich rolls cost about $1 less, and I get the same amount of servings as I do from the ciabatta rolls. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm really curious, how is it doing? So, I'm getting a spoon. This is a really big spoon, because otherwise I'd have to go to the other side of the island here in the kitchen, and I'm just want to get a little taste of almost everything in there. I've got, I don't know if you can see, I've got some of the grain. I see garlic. I don't have my glasses on. I see the two different kinds of stems, so I'm going to taste it. Oh my gosh, that's good. It needs to cook a little more though, but I think what I really like about it though, which maybe I won't cook it a whole lot more, is there's some crunch to it. And that's just, you know, sometimes we want some crunch to our food, right? We don't want everything mushy. We want some crunch to our food. So anyway, there we go. I'm going to take my phone down now so I can bring it in. Let me switch this around so I can really show you. Look at that. It's telling me to rotate my phone. Look at there. You can see all of the different parts all added in there together. I can't wait to have some of this at dinner tonight. I think it's going to be great. Now that I'm done, turned off the burner, I'm going to let that cool down because we're not going to have it right away. But now that I'm done, I can take my hair down, because we are a health department certified kitchen here at the church, which means that, you know, we have to adhere to all of the health department guidelines. So I can't cook in here with my hair down. It's not like being at home. And also, one of the great things that we're going to be able to do, we have this great seal meal over here. So we're going to be able to, if we aren't able to give out the vegetables from, whoops, I'm covering up the thing. If we aren't able to give out all the vegetables from our garden, we will always be able to cut them up, seal them up, and then put them in the freezer, so when somebody comes to the church that needs it, we can have it, because as a health department certified kitchen, we can package those things up. Anyway, that's it. I don't know how long this has been running, but whoever is there, I see Tammy has been watching. Let's see, I think I can scroll back. Linda Busolo has watched, Sylvan English has watched, Erica France, my husband. I don't know who's still watching, but anyway, thank you all so much. I'm glad you joined me for this first of Cooking with Growing Community. I will see you later. I love you, but God loves you more. Bye.